Hello, hope you're having a good day. Today I'm going to go ahead and go over again 3 of our 8 animal cell structures, and I'd like to pay special attention to these 3 structures because they're extremely important for cell health and overall homeostasis. Remember homeostasis? Homeostasis. That is the inner balance. Everything's working right. Not too hot, not too cold, not too thirsty, not too full of water. So our structures are one organelle. The organelle, remember, is a membrane-bound structure within the cell, is a nucleus. The cell membrane is the covering of the nucleus. So right here in this diagram, it's in yellow. Cytoplasm is the jelly-like matrix within the cell, so it's liquid and chemicals combined. It's kind of like a big old soup. And here it's the blue. So everything's floating in the blue, and the nucleus is this big purple ball. Okay, so again, all eukaryotic cells have organelles contained in membranes. Prokaryotic cells do not have membrane-bound organelles. They're much more simple than eukaryotic cells. Eukaryotic cells include plants, animals, fungus, and some other organisms. Bacteria would be an example of a prokaryotic cell. And again, just to review, organelles are tiny cellular structures that perform specific functions within a cell. Kind of like how my heart performs the specific function of pumping my blood. They perform specific functions to keep that cell alive. The cell membrane, its purpose is to protect the inner workings of the cell, allow needed materials in, I'm sorry, I can't get myself out of the way, allow needed materials in and let cell products out. So when the cell makes proteins, the nucleus tells the rest of the cell organelles, hey, we need some proteins made. They either make them or organize them and ship them out. They exit through these portals of the cell membrane. Now this is a cross section, just kind of like a little layer. We're not seeing the whole thing wrap around. But there are these portals, and that's what makes it semi-permeable. Permeable, again, means things can get through it. Semi means they can partially get through it. And we're going to compare the cell membrane to the border. We don't want criminals coming in through our border. We want good people coming in through our border. We don't want, same thing, we don't want criminals coming out of our border. We want good people going out in our border and giving us other countries a good example of America. Okay, here's just another example. So extracellular space, this is outside the cell, inside the cell, and here's the little portals that make it happen. So sometimes they're little channels, sometimes they're little mouths that open and close depending on what they are finding. So they're letting in food, letting in water, letting in oxygen, trying to keep viruses and bacteria and other toxins out. And they're letting out proteins and extra food and cell poop. And the word that we're going to use for letting something out is excrete. They're excreting it. So excrete, exit. If I need to use the bathroom, I'm excreting waste into the toilet. Next, cytoplasm. So cytoplasm is, again, the jelly-like matrix, and it supports the cell, so it keeps its shape. Think of like a water balloon. If it lost its water, it would have no shape and it would just shrink. So the cytoplasm takes up most of the space, and it's kind of the filling. And all the organelles are floated and protected by the cytoplasm because it does give some cushion. And finally, the nucleus. This is our boss lady. It controls cell activities, contains genetic material, DNA, and it's actually so big and so important that we can see it under a microscope very easily. So here, these are cells in the little darker blobs. Those are nuclei. The other organelles that we talked about earlier this week and that we're going to continue talking about next week, they're so small that it's really hard to see them under a microscope unless you have a really nice one. So here's some plant cells, and you can see the little nucleus floating around. So yes, they tell the rest of the cell, hey, cell membrane, we don't need any more water. We're already full. Don't let any more in. And they also tell the ribosomes to make more proteins, make more cell products. We need to be giving back to our body a little bit more. And they store your entire body's instructions, your DNA. And I would really like y'all to get used to using models. So looking at a real cell is kind of difficult to pinpoint the little things. So we use models to give a clearer picture of those things. So again, here's the cell membrane right here. And can you guess what this is? Good, the nucleus. This is your nucleus. This is your main information and control hub. And then your cytoplasm is everything that everything's floating in. So it's kind of the extra space here. And here's just another picture of DNA stored in your nucleus. Okay, I would like to watch this because in this video, your nucleus, cell membrane, and cytoplasm play an important role.
Scientists believe that influenza virus is spread from person to person through exposure to large respiratory droplets, direct contact, or airborne dispersal. Infection takes place mainly in the respiratory tract. Infection begins with attachment of virus proteins to a receptor on the surface of the host cell. The virus is then taken in the cell by receptor-mediated endocytosis. As the virus enters it.
So that was the virus entering the cell membrane. Typically, obviously, the cell membrane's job is to keep them out, but some viruses are tricky and they have this little key that tricks the cell membrane into thinking that there's something useful.
Enters the cell. The virus is internalized in a membrane-bound capture vesicle that carries the viral core.
So here, the cell's being transported. Here we can see the cytoskeleton. This is all in the cytoplasm. And now it's releasing its DNA. And that DNA is heading towards the nucleus of our cell. In particular, this is a lung cell nucleus. Now it's entering the main part of the nucleus. And you guessed it, it's heading for the DNA. It's going to use our DNA copy machine. It's hijacking our copy machines to make its own proteins. Now, I'm going to pause this real quick. These are ribosomes. If you remember from earlier this week, those make proteins. So they're using the coding of the virus genetic material that was just copied in the nucleus to make proteins to help make more viruses. Going back into the nucleus to make more. And now they're assembling to be a complete virus ready to enter the world. If you remember from earlier this week, this is your Golgi apparatus. Actually, let me go back real quick. This is your, This is your rough endoplasmic reticulum. That's where a lot of the proteins are made by the ribosomes. And then your Golgi apparatus, which is your post office. It's going to help ship these new baby viruses and all their products out of the cell. And now they are emerging from the cell. Here, these are antibodies designed to help deactivate the viruses. And can you guess what that was that just ate it? It's a type of cell in your bloodstream. White blood cell. Good. White blood cell, they're part of the immune system. So the real damage to people's health happens right here when all these viruses are emerging from the cells. They're damaging that cell so much that it can't repair itself, and then it's going to die. When that happens on a mass scale, that's when your tissue starts to die, because tissue is made of cells. And then if your tissue starts to die, too much of it starts to die, then your organ might start to fail. For younger people like you and me, typically our cells are young, they're healthy, they can brush a lot of stuff off. But for older people or people with illnesses, oftentimes those cells aren't quite as healthy as ours, or they're, say you're a smoker, they've already been having a lot of damage done to them. So they have trouble dealing with just one more thing to try and maintain homeostasis against. Anyways, if you had any questions about this, let me know, and hope you did well on your ed puzzle.